This year I decluttered all my belongings. So for half of the year I've decluttered every single day something. That was just a really huge project, and it's still going on, and I'm again going through some old papers that I still kept, some material from Sunday school and Bible study and so on. And I've noticed that through my entire life I've been trying to find out, of course, who I am. That's something many people do, of course, and we always ask that question, who am I? And there are different ways people go about it. I noticed that I've always tried to frame who I am, seek identity through a form of teaching, through studying whatever sparked my mind, and to really get to the bottom of the matter. It's a constant attempt to arrive, to finally be able to say that now I've figured out how life works. Now I've come to the point where I can say, this is me. I'm actually really glad that I kept those materials for so long, because at this point in my life, I can clearly see how this reflects my quest for finding finally something stable, something fixed and static in this world. And I realize now that this is really much an illusion. Life is never fixed. Life is in motion, so is identity. The point where you think you have found something that is stable within yourself, that is your identity, that is the point where you can be for sure that you missed the truth. So for me, I've noticed that what is constant in life is motion, is change. It's a cliche, but it's so true. And I've always wanted to see patterns, and there are so many ways to see patterns in your life, the cycle of life, of becoming, of building something. And in my case, it's building your identity. But there always comes the dissolving point where the old you is dissolving. Then you have the in-between where you don't know what you become. And then the rebuilding begins. So I'm now accepting that my identity is not fixed. The structures that I'm building, they are not fixed. On this planet, everything will decay at some point, and something new will arrive. The cycle of the year very clearly symbolizes this, of course. The seed must die before a new plant, a new tree can grow. So it's just very silly to try to hold on one form of identity that you've built over the years. I think it's for many people the search for the ultimate truth, something that is lasting. And you can find this in many worldviews, religions. You know, some people say that love is the thing that will endure, that will last forever. That's the foundation of everything that exists. There are many concepts. So the noticing of the constant change and of different perspectives you can gain through your life, that's something that I always come back to in these days. So it's really only the observing of who you have been in your life, how you have changed, and finally realizing that that is the constant, the change, the moment that gives birth to something new, and the next moment that will dissolve it and make space for something newer to grow. It's also interesting to see how our lives have changed. When I look at all those materials, they are now over 20 years old, and back in the day we had those, you might remember those foils. We projected them through a machine onto the wall, and I also found a disc. I use this. This has a date on it, 13th of February 2005, so this is over 20 years now. I also made a lot of laminated material that I used for teaching, and I also made those wristbands at some point for some teaching where we were talking about that everybody is skilled, that everybody has gifts. So yeah, we are gifted. So I made those little wristbands out of cloth, and I dyed them and printed those, how do you call this? Yeah, basically you would just print this with a computer, this little word, gifted, and then you would cut it, and with an iron you would put it onto the cloth. So yeah, all kinds of things were done in the past, and it's actually nice to see what I've been doing in my life, but also I know that this is a past version of myself, and I kept those things because I thought I might use those materials, my notes, and so on. And at this point, I just realized that this is not going to happen with actually so many things in my life that were part of my identity. I had the same experience that I came to the point this year that I really understood that these were just past versions of myself, and I kept the memories, I kept the equipment because the time was so precious, and all what I kept reminded me of this time in my life and the skills I had, but that I might not use anymore. And in a way it also feels like I've lost some of my skills. I'm not good enough anymore to do this and that. So I've been tailoring at some point in my life, and I've loved to do that. And I kept my tailor stall for almost 20 years. I've not used it in, I think, 15 years or more even. So there was only a short time when I used it, but I kept it because it reminded me of that time and that skill I was using at some point. But now I understood that it's clutter for me because it doesn't have a function in my current life. So I gave it away. And there are so many more things that were so impressive in my life that I like to remember times that were very different than this time. When you are in the between of something, when you are changing phases, you are really like a newborn in a way. You don't know how your body functions, you don't know how life works, and that feels vulnerable. And there is this feeling of inconsistency and uncertainty that is tricky in a way. So the things that you keep from past versions of yourself might function as a soothing object, or there's something that you can default to, that you know that you've been doing, that you know that this is part of who you have been, but it's an illusion to keep these and to try to hold on to something that is not anymore. It's really hard to let go, and this year I've been letting go of so many items that have had emotional value. I've never thought about it this way or never felt it this much than this year. So it felt really like I'm decluttering over 4 decades of my life, my entire life. Everything that I've ever owned, that I've ever acquired, that I've ever experienced. So it's not only the physical items that you declutter, but it's also your memory and your ideas about life and yourself. Also, the things that I didn't understand back in the day, they are so clear to me now. When I look at my notes, I have some papers here that I did over 20 years ago when I was studying the Bible, and I made I just wanted to have a physical representation of the offspring of Adam and Eve, and it even says Adam and Eve and blah blah. And I just now realize that there are only sons. It's only male offspring. There are no daughters. And I just realized that it's only half of the story, because half is missing. And how often I might have been walking a path with only half the knowledge, only seeing half of what actually happened, half of history. It's so interesting to see life from a perspective where you have lived longer, where you have studied more things, where you are more experienced. So looking at older versions of yourself, looking at me as a 20-year-old when I did this, I back then thought that I found something accurate, something that is very true and something that I could follow and that helps me to understand how the world is functioning. But then looking now 20 years later at all those notes that I made, I realized that half was missing, half was always missing. And even from my perspective right now, I know that I'm still missing a lot of viewpoints that I'm not able to see now because I've not experienced certain things in my life. So as I move on, as I live longer, I will find even new perspectives, points of views that help me to understand where I am now. So just noticing how life really is in constant motion and how identity shifts always. I don't think that I can get rid of this innate need and search for true identity, for something that is lasting. But at least at this point, I know that it's not found in older versions of myself. It's not found in structures. It's not found in static expressions of yourself, because that is only bound to time, and time changes, so you are changing. It feels good to let go of these old versions of myself. They will make space for something new to come. And what I want to do is to not stick with any identity, not trying to build identity to shape something, to be someone, to become someone, or to search for the moment where I could say, now I'm whole, now I'm this person, now I have figured it out. But to give space to movement, to experience, basically. Be open to experience life and find new things within myself.